What's some common advice that's actually terrible? 1. Just ignore the bullies and they will go away. No, they won't. What will happen is they realize that you won't stop them or do anything, so they will continue to push you around because they think you're a wet blanket. 2. Agreed. My daughter was stabbed by girls on the bus with pencils, often came home with clumps of hair missing, and covered in bruises. It went on for 2 years. She was physically much stronger than them, being a farm kid, but refused to fight back because she was scared and didn't want to hurt them. School wouldn't do anything. Police wouldn't do anything. And when I tried to speak to the girl's mother, she threw a beer bottle at my truck. My daughter eventually snapped and beat both girls up. School called me, and when I showed up to pick her up, she was covered in blood. It wasn't hers. I guess she cut one of the girl's eyebrows when she hit her. I just shook my head at the principal because I had made multiple complaints and he kept telling us to just have her walk away. 3. Very proud of your girl. Good for her. And good for you for supporting her through it as well. 4. It was hard. Some days I wanted to jump on that bus and grab each of them by the hair. Thankfully it's over now. Both girls changed who they were bullying afterward and got kicked from the school. Word is they homeschool now. 5. I wonder if they learned beer bottle throwing technique in gym class. 6. Lol. The mom was quite the character. I got out of my truck and said, "Hi, I'm so-and-so's mom, and I was hoping we could talk about the girls." That's as far as I got before she started dropping threats, saying her girls are fine, and then grabbed a beer bottle out of her van and threw it at my truck. I just replied, "Okay, maybe not," and drove away. And yes, she grabbed an empty beer bottle out of her minivan. 7. When I was in school I was bullied, and my mom, God love her, always said the whole, "They're just doing it to get a rise out of you, just ignore them." My dad, a big Scotsman who grew up in Glasgow, told me to break the teeth of the one who did it, which my mom always got mad at. So, lo and behold, one day they pushed too hard and I snapped and broke one of their noses and knocked out 3 teeth. The principal was going to suspend or possibly expel me, but my dad was the one picking me up that day and tore into the principal for not doing shit about it all this time and letting it get to that point. When the principal tried to argue, my dad essentially asked if he'd like to go out to the parking lot and discuss the situation further. God love the 90s. And I ended up getting a minor in school suspension. Oh, and the bullies all left me alone after that day. Surprise, surprise. When everyone thinks you'll give them forced dental work for fucking with you, they decide to be nicer to you. 8. I'm 38 now and was bullied pretty mercilessly from 7th through 10th grade. I would give anything to go back and throttle a couple bullies rather than having taken the abuse. Feel like it would have changed my life. I was a good kid and was afraid of getting in trouble for fighting. I know it's a fictional movie, but I feel like Back to the Future got it right. 9. I wasn't ever bullied in school. Maybe a few run-ins with some jerks or whatever, but nothing crazy. But even I think about this all the time. There were just some kids I should have just punched in the face the second they opened their mouth. I avoided that back then because I figured I'd end up doing 0 damage and then getting my ass kicked and looking like a fool. But looking back, it's not like anyone was some pro UFC fighter who would whoop my ass like they were John Wick. Even if they ended up winning the fight, I still could have done enough damage for them to not want to go near me or talk shit to my face anymore. I probably would have gained a lot of respect too, as I find out many years after high school that no one really liked any of these popular jerk guys that walked around like they were hot shit. I thought it was just me and my friends, but I guess a lot of people pretended to like them and secretly wished someone would just punch them in the face. 10. I fought back eventually after an incident where I could have been very badly hurt, and my mom gave me permission to fight back as the school wasn't going to do anything. Turns out I was stronger than the bullies. Parents bought me ice cream after I got in school suspension. Solved the problem. Changed my life. Been neutral good ever since. These days I don't have to fight with my fists, but lesson learned: you have to stand up for yourself sometimes when the system has failed. 11. I was also bullied pretty bad around the same school years as you. I was really scrawny and grew up doing a lot of farm work. So while I wasn't able to put on weight, I found out I was pretty strong. One day when getting bullied, I snapped and fought back. It was like in the movies when the person first realized they have powers. And in true 80s fashion, each bully challenged me one-on-one at various times until I beat them all up. I spent a lot of time in trouble and in the principal's office, But I had checked out parents who had no involvement with me, especially at school. The last bully, the ringleader, didn't fight me at school. He stopped by my house one weekend and I whooped his ass in my front yard. The last 2 years of high school were pretty lonely. I didn't get bullied anymore, but I was the weirdo that everyone stayed away from. On the other hand, I was old enough to drive and got a job the next town over, so I made friends and hung out with them. After high school, I joined the army and left that area, haven't been back. 12. Can confirm. Got bullied in high school by some assholes. Being funnier and faster with jokes, insults worked for some. But there was one dick that just didn't stop. I remember we got our wrestling team shirts and I was super excited. It was a big deal at our school. We had one of the best teams in the state. And this fucker took my shirt and threw it in the urinal while I was pissing. I snapped. I grabbed him by the neck and pinned his face into the bottom of the urinal until he apologized. That was the day I stopped getting bullied. To their credit, the rest of the wrestling team also got really pissed at him for that, and one of the guys even gave me his shirt. 13. I saw a quote on Reddit a while back about bullying. It said, "When it comes to bullying, violence isn't the answer, it's the question." And the answer is yes. I didn't get bullied much in school. People did try it, but if I hit my breaking point I would get violent. Not a single person tried to bully me after I got physical with them. Raising the issues with teachers, administrators, or my parents didn't help at all. Actually, one time the principal did help me because I started dropping legal terms like sexual harassment and racial discrimination, which got him off his ass. 14. I got bullied by another girl back when I was a girl in my preteens, in middle school. I put up with it a lot, but when she tried chasing me home to attack me on my doorstep, I threw hands. I was done with her being jealous that I was, long time, friends with someone she had a crush on. Busted her lip, got in trouble, but she never so much as looked in my direction after that. Violence is 100% the answer to bullies. 15. My mother blamed me for me being bullied because I wasn't just turning around and walking away. I told her I was. I ignored them. I ran from them. I did everything she told me. She insisted that I must be lying then, because bullies always leave you alone if you don't pay attention to them. She then assumed from that point out that I was starting it and egging them on purpose. She had no sympathy for me, and when my school's administrators tried talking to her about my bullying, she'd refuse. I'd always know when they'd contacted her, because I'd come home to a lecture about how I was embarrassing her with my behavior. 16. That's advice from people who are tired of doling out justice and punishment to bullies. My brother wasn't a bully to me, but he would constantly antagonize me, and my parents would tell him to stop sometimes, but mainly they told me to just ignore him. I tried, but he kept going, and then when I would lash out he would tell me to control my reaction. It got better as we got older, but only slightly. Into our 30s my brother was fussing with my hair, poking me in the back as we went up the stairs, and racing after me if I wanted to get to my bedroom in a hurry and close the door. Finally, I went off on him. Told him to grow up, that I don't need to change my reactions. He needs to change his actions, and I told him his behavior was weird for someone in his 30s. It's one thing to heckle your siblings or give them a hard time from time to time, but his behavior was childish. Finally, he stopped. 17. Best thing is to become hilarious and diffuse situations. And every young person should learn basic fighting skills and build physical strength. People can sense when you are prepared to fight if need be. 18. Humor is definitely the best tactic, especially nowadays that schools have that stupid no violence policy where the victim gets expelled for standing up for themselves. But if that doesn't work, a punch in the gut most likely will. 19. Also just being creative. I had a literal gang member threatening me once at a party, asking who I knew, etc., telling me about his gang, and I just kept acting confused. I don't understand. Eventually he got frustrated and gave up. Lol, I've used that at least twice. Yeah, I prob look like a dumbass, but who cares? I got this book as a kid, The Little Black Book, Violence, What Every Young Man Needs to Know About Fighting. It teaches fighting techniques but also makes a huge case for why you should avoid fights whenever possible. Walks you through what happens in real violent situations, as opposed to movie fights, etc. 20. Yup. Best solution to bullies is a punch in the mouth. 21. This worked for me. Granted, they might retaliate. And granted, you might get into trouble. Yes, both of those will suck. But trust me, whatever consequences you face for that punch, if any, will be a goddamn picnic compared to what you'll endure if they think you're an easy target. No satisfaction they could possibly get from picking on you is worth risking a punch in the face for, if they know that's what could happen. And before any teachers jump on this and say violence isn't the solution, you're absolutely right, it isn't. The solution is the figures of responsibility, i.e., the teachers, doing their fucking jobs and dealing with it properly. The problem is that, to an unfortunately large extent, that doesn't happen. My teachers all knew I was being bullied, and they knew who was doing it, because I kept telling them. They did fuck all about it. In the end, I had to sort it out myself. Violence isn't the solution anyone wants. But for a lot of us, it's the only solution we are left with. 22. Don't take no for an answer. 23. Especially when it comes from a man-woman you're pursuing. If they said no, leave them alone. 24. And they don't need a reason? A lot of times the person themselves can't put a finger on why they are not attracted to you, but they just aren't, and that should be good enough of a reason. 25. Forgive and forget. Forgiving is for yourself. Forgetting is foolish. 26. JFK once said, forgive your enemies, but never forget their names. 27. Settle down, Dick. It's just a storm. 28. I'm not a fan of forgive and forget either. I'm more of a move on for the sake of your own peace and happiness type of gal. Forgiving and forgetting being totally optional in that equation. 29. The stupid neither forgive nor forget. The naive forgive and forget. The wise forgive but do not forget. 30. There's an old Corsican proverb, a Christian forgives, only a fool forgets. 31. Just be yourself. Some people are really shitty, and they need to work on improving themselves, not continuing to do the things that make them shitty. 32. There was a piece of advice I heard from someone that went along the lines of be a better version of yourself, which sounds a lot better than just vaguely saying be yourself. 33. I knew a girl who would proudly say, I'm just a bitch, that's just who I am, and when I asked her to stop picking on me she said, that's just how I joke. Are you asking me to stop being who I am? I mean, yeah, if that's who you are then get a new personality. 34. I don't like being around bitchy people. That's just who I am. Some people use being themselves as an excuse to be mean, and it is so frustrating. 35. Everything happens for a reason. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Both inaccurate and incredibly annoying to hear whilst recovering from leukemia. 36. Word. When my mom was diagnosed with what was supposed to be terminal leukemia 17 years ago, she's alive and well. Her doctor met with me privately to tell me how the 2 to 5 months she was expected to have left would play out. Her doctor said, just remember, God doesn't make mistakes, in the cheeriest tone ever, and I was like, he did this time. The audacity of people with their fucking platitudes that don't mean a goddamn thing. Wishing you all the best as you recover. 37. Do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. It should be, do something that enables you to do what you love. 38. Pay for what you like with what you're good at. 39. A lot of Reddit advice advocates for zero social effort, or assuming crippling social anxiety is the norm, which I think is generally a pretty bad thing. A lot of people probably should work to overcome anxiety and work on at least some social competency. Overcoming my own social anxiety massively changed my life for the better. 40. The key to 97% of social interactions is just to ask people questions and be genuinely interested in the answers. 41. Also let yourself be interested in something you might not care about, but maybe a friend does. 42. Totally. Not only does it help you build relationships, your life will be richer if you can find something interesting in any subject. 43. I worked security for 9 years. I said hello to people. I made an effort to remember names. 90% of people there I was just polite to. Guess which security guard could get favors from other departments, and which ones couldn't. Basic social interactions of saying hello and remembering some names meant I got shit done so much more than others. To the point I had people coming to me to report shit that was going wrong and completely ignoring the other guards. I didn't mean for that, but basic social interactions meant it happened. 44. I'm always so surprised by people who think being the hardest as possible is the most effective way to get things done. Do you feel like doing something nice for someone after they chew you a new asshole? Absolutely not. Why would other people be different? 45. I worked overseas for many years, meaning both my professional and private life depended on a huge number of colleagues' departments' offices besides my own. Over the years, I had more than one colleague, usually the hard-charging type of guy, ask me why I got so much support or such good service from housing, travel, it, finance, whatever. I would always ask something like, "Do you know Ashraf in housing?" And he'd say yes. Then I'd ask, "Do you know how long he's worked here? That his wife is Dina in accounting? About his son who's going to Cornell?" And he'd say no, why should he know that shit? And I'd tell him he's just answered his own question. Turns out people like being treated like people. 46. Lawyers will give you a 30-minute session free? Nah. They let you present your case and decide if they want to take it on or not. You're not getting free legal advice, lol. 47. One of the most useful comments here. 48. A lot of financial advice contains something about avoiding all debt, when better advice should probably be to understand how debt can be used as a tool, and how to evaluate if something is worth taking on. 49. Yes. I'm 27 with no credit history debt, and it's actually a pain in the ass because without a history at my age, nobody will let me go into debt if I need to now. I needed new tires and couldn't use the tire store's credit option. Got instantly declined for insufficient credit history. I wanted to get a loan to get a new computer to try to give myself some credit history and a new computer. Declined for low or unknown credit score. 50. Go to your local credit union. Put a $1,000 toward a secured loan to yourself. Do the same with a secured credit card. Spend a year paying these two off and you will do wonders to fix your credit. Ask me how I learned this lesson. 51. Never give up. This advice is given to kids in school because honestly, as long as you don't give up on it, you'll walk away with a high school diploma. But after that, sometimes you really should give up. It's almost a universal adult experience to sink way too much time into something before finally coming to your senses and letting it go. I've needed to know when to tactically retreat much more often than I've needed to remind myself to persevere. Don't immediately give up, but also learn when to cut your losses. 52. The Kenny Rogers song, "The Gambler," is probably succinct advice: know when to hold and when to fold. That being said, I agree with you that for kids the risk of trying too hard to graduate is pretty low. There are tons of problems where a solution either doesn't exist or is more trouble than it is worth. 53. It's almost a universal adult experience to sink way too much time into something before finally coming to your senses and letting it go. It's so common and universal it has a name: sunk cost fallacy. 54. 1. Just ignore bullies and they'll stop. No, they won't. They won't stop unless the consequences of their actions are greater than the enjoyment they get out of making your life hell. 2. You have to forgive someone in order to heal. Again, no you don't. It is entirely possible to move on and live a happy life without forgiving someone who hurt you. 55. Time heals all wounds. No, it doesn't. Sometimes you need to seek outside help to actually properly heal the wounds. 56. Just move on, or get over it. When someone struggles with a traumatic event or events, trauma can get wired into the nervous system in a way that is extremely difficult and painful to move past. 57. Never go to bed angry with your spouse. So, yeah, a good night's sleep along with a fresh perspective and some cool down time sounds like a terrible thing to have. As to be clear, running away from a problem and hoping it goes away by the morning is a bad thing. But calming down and going after it in the morning with a little distance can be a really good thing. 58. I can't tell you how many disagreements my husband and I have had that weren't a big deal the next day. Waiting to deal with a problem with cooler heads is the way to go. 59. My wife and I are the same. We let each other know that we aren't disregarding what's going on, and we sleep on it. The next morning we get up and reconvene. It's much less personal and we get through things faster. No lingering resentment. No words we can't take back. 60. Everything happens for a reason. 61. The caveat for this is often the reasons are stupid. 62. Do what you love, and you'll never work a day in your life. You'll work too many hours for too little money. If you're really lucky, you don't completely despise the thing you once loved. 63. Money won't make you happy. Lol, yes the fuck it will. 64. Blood is thicker than water. Nope, some family members are a holes not worthy of loyalty or love. 65. Do whatever your heart desires. Well, some people's desires are to break the law, so don't do that. 66. My dad had a big conversation with me about how I should not live with my girlfriend fiancée before we got married. He had this conversation with me while I was living with her, which he knew. Just did 10 years. Glad I know that we can live well together and that I knew before getting married. 67. Getting married before living together is an awful idea. 68. You can do anything you set your mind to. Actually, no, you can't. Everyone has some limitations. Financial, environmental, physical, medical, mental. It's okay to accept that there will be some things you can and can't do. It's healthy to be realistic about it. I hate that toxic positivity mindset. 69. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. No, it doesn't. You get traumatized. 70. Spare the rod, spoil the child. Gentle parenting isn't permissive parenting. It's treating kids like people. My mom took zero shit, but she did it firmly and with kindness. You aren't a weak parent if you don't hit.